"You son of a bitch, how could you?" The words snapped across the open-floor office like a gunshot. Half the department flinched. A junior analyst dropped his coffee. The rest just froze, pretending to keep typing, like whatever was happening a few feet away didn't involve them. But their eyes flicked up, their ears strained, because Miranda Kane never raised her voice, until now. She stormed toward me, red heels clacking like war drums against polished concrete. In one hand, she held a printed screenshot of a job application form, the logo of a rival firm, circled in red ink like it was blood. In the other, my ID badge, which she slammed against the RFID reader by the elevator. The panel flashed red. "Deactivated," she said, turning toward the team behind her. "As of now, this traitor no longer has access to company systems, files, devices, or email. If he speaks to you, you report it to HR immediately. Do I make myself clear?" Silence. Embarrassed silence. Some shifted in their chairs. No one made eye contact with me. I looked at Miranda, then I looked at the badge. Then I smiled. Not wide. Not cruel. Just enough. "You're going to regret this," I said quietly. "Not today. Not tomorrow. But before this quarter ends, you will remember this smile." She blinked. Just once, like she hadn't expected me to stay calm. Then she called security. I didn't wait. I picked up my messenger bag, walked past her, past the cluster of interns pretending not to stare, past the HR rep watching from the glass door. I didn't slam the door, didn't mutter threats. I just walked, because I'd already started walking away 3 months ago. My name is Ethan Rourke. I'm 42 years old. Until 22 minutes ago, I was the director of systems infrastructure at Larkwell Dynamics, a mid-sized tech firm that pretends it's lean and agile while rotting from the inside out. I built their entire cloud architecture from the ground up. 6 years of patching holes, designing back-end redundancies, writing custom security layers, and rewriting bad vendor code from overpriced consultants Miranda hired for optics. I wrote the very system she used to lock me out, but she never saw the rest of the blueprint, because buried under all the mandatory compliance updates, I had embedded a dormant layer. Not malicious, not active, just sleeping, a test shell. One line of code under the 2021 rollback deployment, obscured by nested comments and documentation headers she never once read. She didn't ask questions when I pushed it. She didn't care about technicals, just budgets, just optics, just her. So when she denied my raise for the 3rd year in a row, after I saved the company $2.4 million in cloud migration penalties, I decided I was done waiting. She thought this was about a job hunt. It wasn't. It was about leverage. She thought she'd caught me in betrayal, but she never realized the application she found was bait, a test trigger, something I'd set in motion the day I found the invoice trail, her name buried under ghost vendor accounts with foreign IPs, a shell company tied to off-site transfers, data relays, and payments that didn't match deliverables. I flagged it. She buried it. So I buried something too. By the time I reached the parking garage, I was already back in operational mode. I unlocked my car, opened the glove box, and pulled out the secure drive. Slim, matte black, no serials, coded to my fingerprint. I plugged it into the secondary laptop beneath the passenger seat, flicked the kill switch for Wi-Fi, and booted offline. The screen glowed white, then green, then a grid interface loaded, one I built 4 years ago. Access level, root plus ghost. My fingers hovered over the keys. I typed the first command, init_con file KANE/primary, and smiled again. Same smile, only colder. She built her throne fast, too fast. When I first walked into Larkwell Dynamics 6 years ago, Miranda Kane was still VP of Strategy, though everyone knew that was a temporary stop on her way to the top. She didn't climb ladders. She launched herself through ceilings. Corporate meetings were her stage, and she performed like a woman who knew every light was on her. The heels, the polished slides, the sharp turns of phrase, every presentation was rehearsed like a courtroom argument. Confidence wasn't a trait for her. It was a weapon. Junior staff admired her. Senior execs feared her. The rest of us? We stayed out of her way. I didn't care about her image. I came in on contract, quiet, low profile. Just another systems architect brought in to clean up legacy junk code from a failed migration attempt. 3 weeks in, I had mapped out the vulnerabilities, consolidated the redundancies, and proposed a 2-phase overhaul plan that would save them $250,000 in resource waste within a fiscal cycle. She skimmed it, nodded once, and said, "Budget won't allow it. But I like the way you think." Then she sent me a bottle of wine with a post-it that said, "For the headache I gave you." I still have the note, not the wine. That's when I learned how she operated. She gave charm where compensation should have gone, raised expectations, then cut off resources. She'd dangle promotions, talk about next quarter, like it was a promise written in scripture, then fly off to Mykonos and post beach selfies with captions about hustle culture. 3 years in, I asked for a raise after restructuring our cloud security framework. The system was airtight, redundancy-laced, internally encrypted, load-balanced across 4 virtual zones with adaptive threat protocols. I'd saved the company from 2 audit flags and a compliance fine. Her reply: "Love your work, Ethan, but the board's being cautious this year. Optics matter. Let's circle back in Q2. Q2 came and went, so I started building my own insurance. At the time, she'd greenlit a resilience test framework, wanted to know how quickly we could simulate a breach and reroute internally without loss of function. I pitched a tri-shell sandbox, 3 invisible doorways that would allow root-level reroute, log injection, and temporary redirect for forensic simulation. She approved it, smiled like it was her idea. What she never asked was whether the shells came out after the test. They didn't. One shell lets me access internal financials, not just top-level summaries, but transactional-level logs with endpoint trails. Every invoice, every redirect, every vendor approval she ever signed. The second shell overrides email authentication. I can emulate any inbox in the network, read traffic, archive deleted messages, even simulate delivery errors if I want a thread to vanish. The third shell is the real blade. Sensitive client data, access logs, encryption keys, API bridges, enough to shut down trust with a single breach alert. But I never used them. Not until she gave me a reason. After she fired me, I didn't go home. I went to the temp workspace I kept on standby. 2 rented screens, a filtered Ethernet line, and a chair nobody but me had touched. I booted up the forensic interface and called up the server logs from the day she printed that job application and waved it like a warrant. Timestamps, packet traces, IP headers. The intrusion didn't come from HR. It didn't come from IT. It came from her office. Miranda Kane herself had violated protocol to intercept an external job application I never even sent, because it wasn't real. I'd created it through a dummy portal 6 weeks ago, a breadcrumb, something that would ping an alert if someone outside the authorized security node accessed it. She triggered it. I watched the log crawl replay in reverse, data packets flowing like a crime scene rewound. There, packet ID 904-FF23, authorization tag M.KANE_EXEC. She read it, screen captured it, printed it, then used it to end my career in front of 30 silent faces. I leaned back, closed the log. The silence in the room felt surgical. Then I whispered, "Thanks for triggering the final phase." The room was dark except for the soft, pulsing glow of 4 monitors stacked 2 by 2 against the far wall. No music, no TV. Just the low hum of cooling fans and the occasional click of my trackball mouse as I brought system after system online. I liked working in silence. Always had. It was cleaner, quieter. You could hear the weight of every decision in silence. I leaned back in the chair, cracked my knuckles, and ran the extraction protocol again. The shell was still stable, secure, undetected. Good. I wasn't here for revenge. That's what people with broken pride and no plan call justice. No, this was something far older. Extraction, exposure, erasure. I navigated to the VPN terminal and authenticated 3 layers deep into a mirror site built on a secure European node. The splash screen loaded. Marrow Solutions Incorporated. Plain text. White background. A ghost company. Not traceable, not searchable, not even listed on paper. It wasn't a company at all, really. It was a container. One built with federal teeth and private funding, designed specifically to bait executives who think laundering through subcontractors makes them untouchable. Miranda Kane had taken the bait beautifully. She thought she was clever, rerouting vendor invoices through a Dubai-based consulting firm. She thought hiding labor charges under development escalations, buried deep in quarterly burn reports, would throw off auditors. And maybe it would have, if she hadn't rerouted them into one of our plants. Marrow was built for this, a federal probe in disguise. I helped design it 2 years ago while moonlighting on a case involving procurement fraud at a weapons testing contractor. When I realized what Miranda was doing, I looped it in as a silent node, a flytrap, and she walked right into it. The moment she accessed my fake job application, hosted on a sandboxed subdomain of Marrow, it triggered a trace flag. Her IP, device fingerprint, session duration, and behavioral input mapping were all recorded in real time and sent straight to the Office of the Inspector General. That's not surveillance. That's evidence. Now, every system she touches is mirrored. Every file she opens, modifies, or forwards is quietly duplicated into a vault the Bureau can access without needing a warrant. All they needed was a reason. She gave them one. I stared at the heat map, watching data pulses track across servers. Her activity lit up like a nervous animal in a cage, erratic, obsessive. She was digging through old HR reports now, probably trying to preemptively clean up whatever story she was preparing to tell legal. Too late. She was already on record, already tagged, already archived. I rubbed my face and sat back. The room was starting to feel cold, even though the fans were working overtime. My eyes drifted to the bottom drawer of the desk. Still there. A note card she once left on my keyboard, back when the company was still small enough for personal gestures. "Would you die for this job?" she'd written. We'd been working a double shift, trying to meet a sudden compliance deadline. She smiled when I read it, like it was a joke. I never answered her. But now, in the half-light of this quiet room, I finally had one. Number. But I'll make sure your career does. I opened the terminal again, decrypted the forensic bundle I'd been assembling since the day she denied my third raise. It wasn't just about money. It was about leverage, position, power. The full report was 14 pages, compiled with mirrored logs, transactional signatures, metadata trails, and behavioral flags. No fluff, no theory, just facts. I printed 2 copies, one for me, one for the man I was meeting in 20 minutes. The diner was halfway between the city and the federal building. I sat in a corner booth, hood up, report inside a plain envelope. No labels, no names. When he walked in, black jacket, plain watch, eyes that didn't scan the room, I didn't need confirmation. He slid into the booth across from me, nodded once. I passed the envelope across the table. He didn't open it, just tucked it into his coat and said, 48 hours. Then he stood and left. I didn't follow. The lights flickered just after 7:16 a.m. Not all at once, just enough to make people pause. Monitors blinked, fans whined, phones dropped from 4 bars to 0, like a signal had been sucked from the building. And then everything held its breath. Miranda Kane stood at the reception kiosk, coffee in one hand, phone in the other, thumb mid-scroll when the first alert hit. Server authentication failed. Retry. She frowned. Tried again. Nothing. She moved to the elevator, scanned her badge. The reader flashed red, emitted a flat denial tone she'd never heard before. She tried again. Same result. Behind her, murmurs were starting. Staff arriving, phones in hand, staring at screens that wouldn't connect. Internal chat was down. Email was bouncing. Wi-Fi was unresponsive. And when someone tried the office landline, it spat out a tone that sounded like a heartbeat cut in half. She took the stairs. By the time she reached the 14th floor, the floor she once commanded like a queen with no court, the confusion had metastasized into quiet panic. The IT director was already in her office, crouched in front of her workstation, cursing under his breath. He looked up when she stepped in. Something's wrong with the main node. It's not a hardware issue. It's environmental, like something's rerouting us in real time. She stared at him. What the hell does that mean? It means we're not in control of our own system anymore. Finance couldn't access payroll. Client portals were timing out. The backup servers she'd once bragged about at board meetings weren't responding. And worst of all, her credentials were gone. Not revoked, not suspended. Gone. As if she had never existed inside the infrastructure she thought she ruled. She grabbed her phone, thumbed through to her legal contact, straight to voicemail, then the board chair. Same. The glass of the office didn't seem as clear now. The skyline looked farther away, the air too still. She tried the company app on her phone. Crash report. Then a flicker of data appeared, unfamiliar code strings scrolling across her screen like static that had learned to speak. From my safe house, I watched it all unfold. The surveillance cams hadn't been touched. They were baked into the frame of the interior remodel she ordered 3 years ago, the one I oversaw on her behalf. She'd signed the security specs herself, never questioned the second line in the wiring diagram. I sipped from a mug of lukewarm coffee as the internal dashboard came alive with activity logs. Every move she made left a trail, and every trail mirrored into the secure vault already compiled by the federal team. She looked frantic now, jaw clenched, barking instructions that didn't land. Her people were scrambling, but the system wasn't responding because it no longer recognized them. I remember staying late, more than once, rebuilding processes she broke with her vanity hires. I remember hearing her laugh with the board after declining my raise. I remember her saying, "Let's be honest, Ethan. You're not going anywhere. She was right. I didn't go anywhere. I waited. No more excuses. No more favors. No more quarters. I whispered to the room around me. No more quarters left. At 8:04 a.m., she stormed out of the building, got into her Mercedes, slammed the door, started the engine. That's when it happened. Every dashboard light blinked red. Her GPS screen stuttered, then twisted, then went black. A single message appeared, pixel by pixel, slow like a smile uncoiling. Hello, Miranda. Remember me? The boardroom smelled like polished wood, sweat, and something colder. Fear, maybe. The kind that doesn't scream, just settles under your clothes and waits to bloom. Miranda sat at the far end of the long oval table, flanked by two corporate attorneys who looked like they'd aged 5 years on the drive over. Her eyes darted across the room, catching every unfamiliar badge, every sealed folder, every laptop not issued by Larkwell. She didn't know it yet, but this wasn't a meeting. It was a reckoning. A woman from the office of the Inspector General began the briefing. Calm, crisp, surgical. She introduced herself, the agents beside her, then began to distribute copies of the forensic report. Printed, encrypted, watermarked. One of the men set a secure laptop in front of Miranda. No password screen, just a command prompt and a blinking cursor. Ms. Kane, the agent said, we'd like you to walk us through your last 6 months of vendor authorizations, starting with these. He tapped the folder, and ending with this. He gestured toward the screen. Miranda tried to speak, but her lawyer cut in. My client has not been formally charged. We're happy to cooperate, but we need to understand the scope of... You'll understand everything in the next 7 minutes, the woman interrupted. This isn't a fishing expedition. It's a matchbook, and your client's fingerprints are on every page. Miranda glanced down at the first document. Her name was everywhere. So were invoice codes she had signed off on, routing through a web of shell companies, 1 in Singapore, 2 in Croatia, and the last in a building that doesn't exist outside of a federal wireframe. Every redirect traced back to accounts that funneled high-value assets out of client repositories under code maintenance contracts. Then came the logs, time-stamped access records, transaction IDs, behavioral input tracking. She flipped faster, lips pressed tight, fingers trembling as she reached the audio transcript. There it was, her voice. A conversation recorded 6 months ago. She was leaning against a desk in her corner office, talking to a junior financial analyst who'd hesitated to sign off on an inflated budget entry. The recording made it clear. She pressured him, implied he'd lose his bonus if he didn't fall in line, then walked him through how to backdate the authorization. You understand, this isn't fraud, her voice said, lilting and casual. It's realignment. Everyone does it. You just have to trust me. The room stayed silent. Even her lawyers didn't speak. She looked up and saw me. I stepped into the room, the door clicking softly behind me. No Larkwell badge, no staff ID, just a plain suit, a slim portfolio under my arm, and the weight of every second she ever looked through me, like I was a spreadsheet instead of a spine. Her face broke into something between disbelief and rage. You, she said, standing so fast her chair shrieked across the floor. What the hell is this? This is revenge? You think you can... I'm not here for revenge, I said. She froze. I walked slowly to the table, placed the portfolio down in front of the lead agent, then turned to face her fully. You fired me for job hunting, I said, but I was already hunting something. and I found it. Right under your name." She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Just breath and fury. The agents stood. Her lawyers tried to intervene, but they were already too late. She screamed. Denials, threats, desperate flailing accusations aimed in every direction. One last grasp at a kingdom that had already crumbled beneath her. The agents cuffed her wrists without ceremony. She turned once, eyes wild, and looked at me like I'd stolen something. I hadn't. I'd taken it back. And when they led her out of the room, she didn't look back.